6 kills credited Erster.
All right, let's go. Let's see it, Erster. Where did he find his way in? Because this was perfectly timed. Yep, right in the mix as they all back off as a group. It doesn't get any better than that.
I got you. I got you. Thank you very much. My name's Erster. See you later.
Match 1 of the final day of this week would feature Dallas Fuel versus the Paris Eternal, where recently moved coach Damon would hope to help Dallas to a victory over his former team.
Both Paris and Dallas would start off with a little bit of mind games, each team trying to figure each other out. Both open with a DPS, but quickly go back and switch to the 3-3 composition. Dallas, though, early on, already looking very, very strong. They take round number 1 off the back of a good self-destruct from Note, helped by OG, who would have a monster performance this match.
Waiting for this, let the grab go. It was a big earth shatter from OG, but it doesn't matter. Note tucked it over the top. That's huge. Getting rid of the shield of LH Cloud, and the Dallas Fuel of Clyde back.
Heading into round 2 as well, not that close either. It goes back and forth, but ultimately Dallas does come out on top. Though Finzi did have a good Graviton Surge denial with the Matrix, and Dallas would take map number 1 2-0.
Moving on to map 2, Paris would hope to have the hometown advantage as they move on to the map of Paris. Dallas would struggle a little bit on point A as well, but eventually get through the bunker composition coming out on the defense with their Sombra comp.
Then headed to point B, the first defense would in fact work out with a great play from Danye on the Bastion, coupled with the amplification matrix, but it would not last for long. After AKM baited out the Riptire, OG would come in with a cleanup Earth Shatter, and Dallas with a fairly close fight take out point B as well, and their attack run, not that bad, all things considered.
Paris would have a pretty decent attack run of their own, one that actually beats out Dallas in time bank. They would struggle a little bit after just diving straight into the bunker composition Dallas would pull out on their defense, but eventually Paris would manage to get that ult dump combination of Nanoblade and EMP online, push through point A, and get the full cap on B, utilizing EMP with the Sombra Goats.
Trying to get rid of him early on, but no, Danye gets burnt down. He tried to get in front of Zachary, deflects those bullets back. It didn't work.
Both teams, though, would get held out on their second round attack, so Paris would end in a draw.
To bring the pain, OG can't get away. Mortar fire decimating the Dallas Fuel.
And that takes the stage now for Blizzard World. Dallas opens up with the McCree comp, AKM on one of his original signature heroes, and they went out point A with only 2 kills. As the pacifist run looking very likely. OG at the very end helps them close out point B as well, and a very clean third point helps them take the full capture through Blizzard World, setting Paris up now to have to complete the map out to keep their series hope alive.
But Paris would not be deterred by this Lafon. They would bring out 3 DPS and get a quick cap on point A, but then once they had to switch to that Goats comp, reset their ult economy a little bit, they'd get slowed down on B and barely manage to get through that and point C.
Yeah, they only get the 30-second time bank, and it does get bumped up to a minute, but that push gets held as well. And then Dallas, the door is open. Takes them a little while, but they get there, and with the last fight of the map, OG actually closes it out as well with an Earth Shatter, and Blizzard World ends with Dallas taking the lead, and therefore the series, and Dallas more than happy to take the win here, especially for their new coach Damon up against his old team.
It wouldn't be all frowns, though, for Paris as we move on to Rialto. Despite Dallas winning out the first fight on their offense, they would get stalled out on that second point and never recover, giving Paris a nice win condition moving into their attack, where Paris would open up with yet another DPS comp, and because of Finzi's Hanzo and Shadowburn's Pharah, they would be able to push through and take the map after only 2 fight wins.
And, Europe, not only known for their GOATS composition, they have some very good DPS players as well. Paris, they won't take the series win, but a map consolation is in their future. Match number 1 over for the day, and Dallas wins the series 2-1.
Match 2 of the day would feature 2 teams, both riding the struggle bus here in Stage 2, both yet to pick up a win thus far. The Atlanta Reign versus the Washington Justice, and, well, one of them was bound to win today.
One of them had to, and Washington Justice looking rather competitive as of late, especially their DPS player Corey, who kind of pops off a couple of times on several heroes and would look to start Busan with the same level of success.
But that would not be the story of the day, as coming out on Busan it would be a DPS composition for Washington, but The Atlanta Reign Winston Goats would kind of just slap it around that entire first round as Atlanta would take it 100-0.
And while Corey's Widowmaker is in fact sick, Atlanta, they'd flip point 2 mid-fight, and because of the 3 DPS kind of struggling at the control aspect of the game, never would really regain that control, and Atlanta would take Busan 2-0.
But moving on to Paris, Atlanta would actually struggle a bit going on to their offense. The Washington bunker proved to just be too strong. As you were talking earlier, one of the DPS heroes Corey does excel on is Bastion. Turns out, when you have good aim, if the only thing you have to do is aim and sit still, it works out pretty well. So Atlanta couldn't really get past that Baptiste bunker with the Bastion in it. And whether it was Corey or Otto on the Pharah, they would just get decimated and full held.
And Washington, on their attack, split the Atlanta bunker. They get a couple kills and then EMP, and all they gotta do is take that 1/3 and do so with relative ease, all things being considered. Paris would go to Washington, and we have a tie series here at halftime.
It couldn't remain that way, though. As we head on to Eichenwald, Atlanta would come out and try to stop the Washington 3 DPS yet again with their same Winston Goats. Wouldn't go over quite as well this time, as Otto and Sansam would pull off that EMP barrage and take that first point for Washington.
Atlanta, though, would spawn camp on the second point, and Washington, as a result, can't really finish out point B. Washington, they'd set up a bunker with Symmetra, and it works at least initially, but Paul, that story didn't last for much longer.
No, Erster, his Tracer, is something we haven't gotten to see him on in the Overwatch League, but damn if it don't speak for itself.
Kills credited Erster.
All right, let's go. Let's see it, Erster. Where did he find his way in? Because this was perfectly timed. Yep, right in the mix as they all back off as a group. It doesn't get any better than that.
I got you. I got you. Thank you very much. My name's Erster. See you later.
Atlanta would take that residual momentum and they'd muscle through and cap point 2, and that would be it for Eichenwald. And Atlanta, now taking the lead here in the series 2-1 off a scoreline on the map 2-1, and head ourselves into Rialto.
And match point in Atlanta would look to start strong. They would push all the way through the map without too many difficulties, finish with a little over 2 minutes in that time bank. Washington would have to meet their pace coming out on the 3 DPS yet again for this team, and it would take a second, but they would eventually get that first point.
Washington, though, they do swap to the 3-3 afterwards, and Pokpo says, no thank you, kind of using the Primal Rage to bully them around a bit.
Pokpo's decided to just go angry right, does manage to chuck Corey into the drink, Addo as well.
Washington, they do finish out the cap, but only barely, with a few seconds remaining, and Atlanta set themselves up for success.
And the time bank rounds wouldn't work out so well for Washington. Turns out if you're running a composition that relies on time, and you don't have much time, well, it doesn't work out so well. So the 3 DPS can't really even get Washington around the corner with the cart, and from there, it would be an easy cap, an easy clap even, for Atlanta to finish out the series 3-1.
Florida versus NY Excelsior. This is going to be our third match of the day, and it is a rough one early on. First place overall in the league versus last place overall in the league, and Florida really looking to just honestly not embarrass themselves against one of the best teams we have here in the Overwatch League. Map number 1, though, it's not a great start as NYXL kind of bully them around for 2 points, and Oasis goes very handily to NYXL 2-0.
And New York Excelsior, as they do, would keep that momentum moving on to Paris. Despite Saya Player's Widowmaker generally being phenomenal, it wouldn't work out too well for the Florida Mayhem. He would only get 1 kill, and New York Excelsior would decimate their attack run.
And Florida, kind of struggling. But Swan actually pops off on the Winston Primal Rage to unlock point A. They head to point B, and, it does not get better for Florida, in all honesty. No. Meko eats a Graviton Surge from BQB as he's standing up from an Earth Shatter. A little bit telegraphed, if I'm being honest with you. And Florida Mayhem, they get full held on Paris, and Paris ends with NYXL winning it out 2-1.
Match point for the Excelsior as we head to Kings Row, one of New York Excelsior's favorite maps in general, so you can't imagine it gets better here for the team in red and yellow. Excellent run here for New York Excelsior as we expect from them. Jonak, pretty good at Ana. Who's surprised? Absolutely nobody. And New York Excelsior take all 3 points.
Yeah, Florida Mayhem, they'd get through the first two, so, a little bit stronger showing than they had on the previous maps, but ultimately they would get held on the third point, and it's a little bit rough, but there is progress. Florida Mayhem, they lose out the series here as Kings Row goes to NYXL 3-2, and now we head into Junkertown, where, you're hoping for at least some shenanigans from the Florida Mayhem, but initially, NYXL, a very standard attack, they do get all the way through all 3 points, and though that being said, NYXL only end the map with 34 seconds left in time bank.
Yeah, not the most blazing time we've seen from the Excelsior. Florida, however, not much of a blazing time themselves on that first point. They get held for a very long while, and finally Saya player's Widow makes a true appearance, and he gets a double kill in overtime to open up that point. Florida then move on to Goats. They roll through second, but they can't quite finish out that third, meaning that this map would end 3-2, and the series would end 4-0 in favor of the Excelsior.
Caught inside a Graviton surge. So, what? There was no setup. There was no setup. There was nothing there.
Match number 4 of the night, and it was the LA Gladiators versus the LA Valiant, the Battle of LA, and we knew we would get a better game as both these teams seemed to somehow just bring out the best in each other, Paul.
Oh, this matchup always delivers, and despite the fact that throughout the entirety of last season, it was the Valiant taking it over the Gladiators 4-1. Moving into this, Gladiators clear favorites as they are doing much better this season. Valiant only picking up 1 win thus far earlier this week against the Atlanta Reign. Would start on Lijiang Tower, and surprisingly enough, Valiant first and foremost would get that first control off Roar overextending a little bit.
Yeah, that being said though, that Izayaki would get caught out himself.
KSF, he's charged up on energy, a lot of damage going into it, but
and Gladiators take control right after that. Valiant and Gladiators would both trade a couple of fights back and forth through Garden, and Gladiators would find the picks eventually to take round 1. Heading to round 2, though, again, the same story, back and forth affair, and Valiant, they just run out of ultimates. Their ultimate climb is a little bit weaker, and they ended up losing Lijiang 2-0.
Moving on to Hanamura, Valiant would hope to bring themselves back in, but would struggle a little bit with the creative composition coming out from the Los Angeles Gladiators on their defense. Surefour was subbed in for Void, so triple DPS defense would be the name of the play. Mei, Widow, and Bastion, interestingly enough. And Hydration's Bastion is something to be feared.
concern for the Valiant, Agility's not going to be able to make it out intact.
Well,
This attempt by the Valiant will not pan out. 2.5 minutes left.
saps the energy out of you. Meanwhile, up top here, tank mode has gone in. Custa goes down to that tank.
That sounds like my greatest nightmare. Widow, Bastion, Mei. Sounds absolutely insane. Valiant, though, they stock up their ultimates and dump all of them to get through point A. They struggle on point B, and they get full held again as Gladiators' Bastion point B defense really throws them for a loop. Hydration yet again with another 3K on that Omnic character.
Immediately D-Max. Deaded as well. Agility's gone. Hydration!
And Gladiators, their turn to attack.
Yeah, but Gladiators would throw themselves for a bit of a loop here as they would come out on the Reaper Goats. The Reaper 1, 2, 3 here is
You
subbed
keep bringing
in.
this up. Okay, I just want to say this. You keep bringing this Reaper Goats up, and every time. It's not good. Stop making it happen. It won't happen. Reaper Goats is bad. Anyway.
Well, and, you know, Surefour disagrees at the start, but then he gets 0 kills, has a Death Blossom that doesn't get anything, and then switches to Sombra, and eventually off a huge ult dump, Gladiators do manage to get that first point. But the Gladiators, after nearly getting that one necessary tick on B, would struggle as Fate would pop off and save the day for Valiant.
This is going to be at the tipping point. The Valiant, they've succeeded. They have held against the Gladiators, and we are looking at a series here.
And Hanamura gets its name very aptly as Hanamura ends in that draw. And so we still have a 1-0 scoreline at the half, Paul, heading into map number 3, Eichenwald. This is where Big Goose, he gets caught a little bit out, and Valiant easily take point A.
Yeah, the Gladiators, though, they wouldn't want to give up ground. They'd take aggressive fights, pull resources from Valiant early, and after a little bit of silly Rhine displacement shenanigans, would eventually stall the Valiant out on that second point of Eichenwald.
Gladiators, they push against Valiant's Baptiste Goats.
Very much. Void getting D-Max isn't going to help things here for the Gladiators, though. Gonna have to work his way back up to it, and it's just not going to happen. KSF coming up with the goods. 2.5 kills, and there's the follow-up. KSF, and he's just always Johnny on the spot for the Valiant. 83%.
With better ult economy, take the map and hold it out 2-1, as that would end the series up for them, as they cannot get a victory here.
But the battle for LA never ceases, and on Rialto, it would continue in its ferocity. Reaper would make his Overwatch League debut here, subbing in for Shaz. And with his help, Los Angeles Gladiators would manage to hold the LA Valiant on point B.
Here we go, Decay now point blank, gonna go ahead and melt them! And the Valiant get them in. Can they find the kills? Could still be possible here for the Gladiators to stabilize, and they are going to make it happen.
It's not only possible, it's probable. Rippo was able to get the Transcendence going. He also did a ton of damage there, finished up a couple of kills.
Valiant's ult economy, a little bit of a struggle throughout the series, gets a little bit cleaned up here, but it seems it's a little bit of a contagious case as Gladiator's ult economy becomes the subject of much distress, and they get full held here. So Rialto ends 1-0 for Valiant, and they take at least a map here in this series.
Yeah, Valiant, you know, they brought it to the Gladiators in the Battle of LA, but you really wish that they'd bring it in the rest of the season.
And I think they will, though, Paul. You know, there's so much improvement from this team, and Gladiators themselves, a strong mid-table team in their own right. So I would expect the Valiant to be on the up and up here as they bring it out against their in-town rival.
But it would be Gladiators taking that series today 2-1 until the next battle for Los Angeles. That'll be it for the matches this week, guys. We will return next week recapping all that Overwatch action. Until then, if you liked the video, there's a button for that down below. You know the drill. It's YouTube. If you didn't like the video, leave us a comment. Tell us how to improve. We're always looking to do that. Either way, make sure you subscribe to Elohell Esports and stay tuned for more Overwatch content.